let me give you a sense of what we see from Nasscom in terms of this whole ecosystem and what we believe are the stuff that we need to do differently, right? I know. So let's begin from what the context itself is, the tech industry and how it's been doing, and then as you said, there's no real dull movement for all of us. $283 billion, employing about 5.8 million people around India. This has been a good pivotal moment for the industry itself, right? And I won't go into the details of that. After a long period, and all of us have enjoyed that gestation of about fairly significant double-digit growth for this industry, especially post pandemic years, immediately following pandemic, and then of course we've been sort of suddenly fell out of the wagon in some sense, right? So we obviously been at least for the last I would say about 2-3 years now, we probably have a very sort of a moderate mid-single digit type of a very kind of a growth. It also reflects the broader whatever is going on globally as well. So it's not very different from what we're seeing globally, but that's reality in some sense. I think the more we get to understand and accept that things will not necessarily be the same as what it was yesterday, I think it probably will all be better off. But what is also a little bit different in the last few months and few quarters is what you're seeing is also the pace of job creation, right? And I'm not going to talk about the current news and what it implicates, implications of that and all of that, but I'm sure we'll address all of that. But I think that is certainly something which is of a point. But amidst all of these uncertainties and stuff that we are seeing in the marketplace, there's always been this bright spot called GCCs, and that's the reason why we are here, and we'll talk about how do we make it even brighter in some sense, right? So that's something which, whether it is the in terms of driving growth, deepening the innovation quotient that you all been able to bring into the table, clearly reaffirming India's strategic position, which we've been sort of enjoying across the board in some sense. GCCs are no longer what we used to be talking about, right? And all of you are probably you're probably the living proof of how this GCCs have been transformed over a period of time. But I want to tell you something, right? When you look at a global product today, irrespective of what the product is, and I know that we're going to hear from Manu later on the Mercedes story and so on and so forth. But then, irrespective of what the product is, there is some element of it, whether it was imagined, normally it is imagined outside, or probably in your headquarters or the R&D headquarters or whatever. But I think today, whether it is imagined or developed or tested or produced or enhanced, all of that in India will have a big part to play. I don't think there will be any product today which has which can escape from this whole dependency, or I won't call it dependency, the involvement from India side. So that makes us really proud. I think over a period of time, I think this will only get stronger, and I believe that it will get stronger because the technology is also changing so rapidly. I think in the yesteryears, it probably was important, but not necessarily critical for everybody to have this component. But I think as we move into the new age technology, I believe very strongly that every crank at getting into new technology, whether it is AI, whether it is generative AI, agentic AI, tomorrow there will be something in quantum and so on and so forth. I think every crank of that will make this dependency, if you may, again, so I'm calling it loosely, please don't shoot me for it, but I think that will become actually bigger, which means that the GCCs will not necessarily have too much of an option, if you may, but to sort of look at India a little bit more, every crank of the technology revolution, or every crank of the new age revolution that we're going to see in the marketplace. So it makes the India centers that much more relevant in many ways. So, and also that's also because of the India value proposition of the GCCs have shifted fundamentally. You all know this more than I do. Just talking to Lalit a minute ago, saying that probably one GCC or two every week, or every that's what roughly is saying, right? So, but in our count is about 100 a year is what anywhere between 60 to 100 a year GCCs are getting set up. New ones are getting set up. The old ones are of course growing, expanding massively. And of course, I'm not going to state the obvious that how much of an impact that it has on our economy, how much of an impact it has on the global tech ecosystem itself. And when you look at a little bit of a closer look and then see the kind of programs that the GCs are running today, whether it is the global AI programs, the engineering product design, cloud native platforms, etc., etc. Fundamentally, I believe that we are driving a lot of decisions from here, which is also a big component of what the future of the GCC look like in terms of where is the real decision making coming from, and if it is not from necessarily the headquarters, and what is the relevance and the importance of this centers in India will mean. So I think clearly, I mean, 25 years ago, I'm looking at Lalit because there was this wonderful gentleman all of us worked with called Paul Singer, and then I remember the Target being established in India, one of the initial retail GCCs which came to India those days. Clearly, it was for cost. I mean, there was no other major reason. It was not that India was, at that point in time, I'm talking about 25 years, I can't even remember how many years ago was that, Lalit. But I think, today they are coming for not just for the cost, of course, for the capabilities and all the innovation that you do, but they're staying for relevance. Because today, almost I remember a couple of years ago, when we saw this gold rush of GCCs to India, we were asking, what is it really that they're driving this gold rush? And some of the people said it is actually the fear of missing out, FOMO in some sense. But the real issue is that relevance. I think if you're here, I think you're more relevant to the centers here are going to be a lot more relevant to what really goes on broadly in their parent organizations, and also why India, right? And this is something which has always been back and forth. And can another country replicate some of this? Of course it can. I mean, this theoretically it can, but very very few countries can actually offer the combination of the stuff that we do in India, whether it is the talent, the depth of talent, the breadth of talent, the size of the talent, the scale at which we kind of do things. Clearly, I think I can't think of any other country. I don't think many of us can pull out a name saying, oh, this will be able to match in all of these aspects. And also the consistency of performance and what we are really able to bring in. So these are all critical things. But what is also changing in the process, when you do see all of this and where we are really going, and I believe that this a few things are converging in some sense. In my mind, when you look at talent, when you look at technology, and we look at the trust, if you sort of look at these three T's, if you may, and I don't like this T's and C's and all that, but I thought nevertheless we'll deal with it. I think it's about, for us as India to completely, sort of, as I said, hit it out of the park. I think we got to do a lot more than where we are today. And the talent is clearly a great example of, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's no question that we produce probably the maximum number of engineers in the mix. But then, we all know that if you put a question mark around it, saying that what kind of engineers we produce, and are they all ready to do what the talent revolution really wants us to be doing? What is the need of the talent when you look at 2 years or 3 years down the line? These questions will be answered in a little different way than just the number of engineers that our universities produce. So a lot to be done around talent. There is no question about the need for talent, but there's a lot of question around, are we really going to produce different kind of talent for what is required for the future, which also means that it's not just about engineers, but do you also have thinkers, or have people who can actually do stuff which is going to be relevant for tomorrow's world? So that's one big topic around talent. We all can debate. Same thing around technology. I think all of us know that the change is the only way all of us are going to move forward in technology. That you will have different technologies every other week, which is going to show up on a doorstep. So how do you really make sure that from operations to innovation, we cannot afford not to be on the cutting edge of technology? So that's going to be a big component of how we embrace technology. How do we make sure that the talent is capable of leveraging those technologies as we go into the future? The third is obviously the trust. I think India has done a very good job so far in terms of stability, the depth of talent, the scale. Quite honestly, till the recent, 2-3 months ago, when we had the skirmish around the India, Pakistan, etc., I think we had a phenomenal amount of stability. And I think even this has not really made a huge damage to that reputation. I think we continue to be one of the most stable places around the globe. So we'll continue to do that. So what does it take for us to truly become the the global innovation, execution, and strategy hub, if you may, of the world. I think we already are in many ways, but I think if you want to strengthen that position, this is not just about Nasscom doing it or the government doing it, but it's a collective effort of everybody, with the industries, the GCCs, the R&D companies that is in the way. Everybody trying to sort of pull it together would be, how do you shift from this whole talent to more leadership, expertise-based talent that we talked about? How do you make sure that from services to IP, and Sindhu's favorite topic of, can be a product nation, we still have to have some debate around what we call a product and what it really means. But I think the shift actually is very, very meaningful in terms of look, services is not bad. I think services will still pay our bills, right? There's no question for me on that at all. But the ability for us to sort of layer the cake, if you may, with a little bit of a IP-based icing would be phenomenal. I think we have been struggling to do that as a nation, as an industry. I think we'll continue to sort of embellish it and then make sure that we are getting there in some sense. Of course, my favorite topic of saying, the GCCs will have to stop talking about cost and talk about revenue. I think the day that the GCCs are able to influence the revenue of the company, then you'll know that you're really making a big difference in many ways. And I remember my friend Sujit, who was sitting in the front row, asked me this question. I can't remember, about a year ago or so in a panel, and this is exactly what I told him. Said, the shift from the cost mindset to a revenue mindset, it changes the way you look at what we need to get done. So I won't belabor the point, but I want to make sure that the next 5 years are going to be very, very critical in terms of defining whether our GCCs are going to be a pure execution hub, or are we really going to be the innovation leader for everything is going to come by. So this is going to be a very crucial period for all of us in terms of making it. And I know that we have wonderful sessions, and there are people who are actually doing the job, and we actually talk, we don't do too much, but I think now we'll also hear from the people who really do some stuff here. Thank you.